Start. Okay, so I've started recording, and hello everyone. Welcome to our UU Virtual Roundtable. My name is Sarah Reyes, and I will be today's moderator. So before we begin, let's just take some time to remind everyone that we are going to be recording this session, and we will be uploading it onto the UUCLC YouTube page. So this is a really nifty source to use if you want to go back and rewatch some of these, or share it with people that you may know. So that's one option that's available to you. Secondly, we ask that you remain muted during the presentation section, which will be about 30 to 40 minutes long, depending on how long it takes. But afterwards, we will have a Q&A section afterwards where you'll be able to give any questions, concerns, comments, etc. And our speaker will be able to respond to them, of course. With that said, I think that's about it. So please enjoy today's roundtable session.
Okay, Dinko, you can get started.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hanaan Dinko, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Denver here in Colorado, here in the United States. And I'm originally from Ghana. It is my soul soil, as you get to know. And just for context, Ghana is located in the western part of Africa. Most people tend to confuse Ghana with Guyana. Guyana is in South America, bordering Brazil, Suriname, and Venezuela. It's totally different from the Republic of Ghana. Before I go ahead with the presentation, it is very important I disclose my identities, who I am, and my positionality as a Ghanaian citizen. First of all, I come from the northeastern part of Ghana, and as you could see in the left side of the map, this map shows the various ethnicities and tribes in the country. And I come from this particular place. I don't know whether you could see my, this is where I come from in the northeastern part of Ghana. I am a descendant of Werkamdim, who are supposed to be, who are historically horsemen and considered warriors up north. And I come from a royal family line. My ancestors have been chiefs of most part of northeastern Ghana for centuries. Currently, my grandfather is a chief, and per family succession, it is not inconceivable that one day I may end up becoming a chief of my for my people. Now, so that means that this part of the country is what is called my soul soil. In my culture, we call, when you say something is your soul, a place is your soul soil, it means that it is the place of your birth. It is where your umbilical cord was buried. And spiritually, you are forever linked with that place, even till the day of your death and even into the afterlife. So assuming in the worst case scenario that I die in the US now, custom dictates that part of my body or my personal effect be taken back to my hometown and buried in order for my soul to progress to the afterlife. When I say parts of my body, I mean like fingernails or my hair should be taken home, or my personal effect. If that is not done, it is considered that my spirit will be lost in the world. So that is what we mean by soul. So that is what I mean by soul soil, and this is just a literal translation from my culture. So where is Ghana located? And as I indicated earlier, Ghana is located in the western part of Africa, and it borders the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, formerly known as the Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, formerly known as the Upper Volta, and the Republic of Togo to the east. And it's just the size of the state of Oregon, and yet still there are about roughly 31 million people living in Ghana currently. And we have a very diverse linguistic and cultural landscape. There are at least 75 languages and dialects in Ghana, with over 60 ethnicities. Now, there is a distinction between ethnicity and then tribes. So in Ghana, when we say an ethnic group, we mean it is a collection of group of people who kind of who have some cultural and linguistic similarity. So in this case, if you were in the Western context, you probably classify the British and then the Scottish as one ethnicity, because their languages are somehow similar. And religiously, in terms of religion, about 70% of Ghanaians claim to be Christian, and 16% are Muslims, and about 10% of the population practice African traditional religion. Now, it is not uncommon to have people practicing multiple religions and faith in the country. So somebody could be a Christian at some point in time. At another point in time, still being a Christian, they will still be adhering to some of the practices in the African traditional religion. And so it's kind of interesting. In my family, for instance, I come from a very diverse, very big and diverse family. As I said, my grandfather is a chief. My great-grandfather had, for instance, 45 wives from 3 different countries in West Africa. He was really a powerful chief pre-colonial times, and he ruled parts of southeastern Burkina Faso and northeastern, present-day northeastern Togo, and then northwestern Togo, and then northeastern Ghana. So geographically, Ghana has a diverse climate. Most people often think about African countries from either two extreme points of view. Either it's a completely desert or it is a tropical jungle. But as you can see here, Ghana is just about 4 degrees above the equator. And the southwestern part of the country is where you can find a thick tropical forest. The rest of the country, generally not that forested, even though it is said forest zone here. It is the forest, the thickness of the forest is way different, way sparser in the forest zone compared to the deep tropical area. And the northern part of the country is largely savanna climate, very similar to northern New Mexico. And where I come from has climatic conditions akin to the southernmost part of northern New Mexico, which is the northeastern part of Ghana. So this is, I want to present just a brief overview of the history of Ghana. So prior to the 1400s, now the 1400s is important because that is when we had Europeans, it was the age of exploration. So we had first contact in large numbers, first contact with Europeans. But prior to that, there were small kingdoms and chiefdoms scattered across the country. There were four major kingdoms in Ghana: the Ashanti Kingdom, I don't know whether you've watched Black Panther, for instance. Black Panther has some um, scenes where they try to depict what was happening within the Ashanti Kingdom. Now, the Ashanti Kingdom was the most powerful, and it was located within the southern part of the country. Up north, we had three competing kingdoms, the Mampugu Kingdom, where I come from, and then the Gunja, and then the Dagbon Kingdom. Now, it is important to underscore that the Dagbon and then the Mampugu Kingdoms are like brothers. It's more or less like they speak similar languages, and they practice same cultural practices. The food, the rite of passages like childbirth, death ceremonies, and all that are very much similar. In fact, it is believed that the Dagbon Kingdom was formed out of the Mampugu Kingdom by a son of a daughter of the Mampugu king. So in prior to colonialism, this is just the the social organization of Ghana. At the base, you had citizens, or what we call subject, and then at the top, you had either a paramount chief or a king, depending on the ethnic group that you're looking at. Kings were very rare, especially in smaller territories, but in territories that were large and big, you had kings emerging. Now, kings had series of chiefs under whom the kings had various divisions of chiefs under him, and we had the least of that division is the headman, and the headman, for instance, will be head of a village, for instance. Now, most often than not, in the literature and in popular literature, especially Western-centric or Eurocentric literature, they often portray African communities as highly patriarchal, and women have little or no role at all. But that is actually not the case, because women were very, very important. They played important roles in pre-colonial Ghanaian society. In fact, in every court, in every palace, there was a queen mother. Now, a queen mother does not necessarily mean the mother of the chief or the king. A queen mother is supposed to be the oldest member of the royal family, oldest female member of the royal family, who is supposed to, who is believed to have lived through different chiefs and kings, and for that matter has this institutional knowledge about the chieftaincy. And queen mothers are responsible for nominating who becomes the chief. And the queen mother is also responsible for dethroning a chief. So the women were, in the court of, or in the palace of a chief, women were very, very powerful, because they were considered the wisest of all advisors, and the queen mother's advice tend to be the ultimate and the final one. Now, during pre-colonial times, it is economic activities were centered around the trans-Saharan trade route. And just to go back to this map, the Sahara Desert in Africa is from the northernmost part around Algeria and Libya, and then the southernmost part around Burkina Faso, all across the continent. Now, prior to colonialism, trading was often done with various kingdoms here. And as you may have read maybe in African history, there were very powerful kingdoms in Mali here, the Songhai Kingdom, the Ghana Kingdom, for instance, were very powerful, and trade was south to north. Now, this totally changed during the period of colonialism, where it tended to move from north to south, and I'll explain further going forward. But aside these communities that had centralized form of government headed by chiefs or kings, there were numerous number of acephalous societies. Now, an acephalous society is a society that does not have centralized kind of leadership. And there are a lot of tribes in Ghana that do not have chiefs. So, and yet still, and what was happening and what has happened over the period of time was that most of these acephalous societies have been co-opted into the main kingdoms within the country. Now, there is a difference in culture between the northern part of Ghana and then the southern part of Ghana. When I say northern part of Ghana, I mean from this part of the country. This part of the country is distinctly and uniquely different from the southern part of the country in terms of the food they eat, in terms of cultural practices, and all that. And I would show you more details. So for instance, in northern Ghana, chiefs are often, their symbol of power is supposed to be the skin. And whenever you hear any Ghanaian talk about a skin, he's not talking about the skin of a human being. He's talking about skins of tigers, of skins of lions, and all that. And the skin of a tiger or a lion was a symbol of, or still is the symbol of authority in northern Ghana. So chiefs would, in pre-colonial times, that was literally more or less like symbol of power and a mat upon which they sat on, and it was more or less like the throne of the chief. And as you can see here, most northern chiefs are supposed to be horsemen who are adept and brave and capable of defending their territories. Contrast that to the southern part of the country, where chiefs, because the southern part of the country, and geography has a role to play in these things, because the northern part of the country is savanna, and you don't have black flies and cheche flies, and so you have various animals growing there, including horses. The southern part is more forested, and has cheche flies. Now, cheche fly is supposed to be a vector for what is called the sleeping sickness, and horses and other animals do not do well within a tropical rainforest. So that explains, in some ways, why northern Ghana tend to have a lot of horses compared to southern Ghana. And this is the most powerful chief in southern Ghana. He's called the Asantehene. Really, really powerful. I'm glad that Paul talked about the fact that he worked with the World Bank, because he is that powerful to such an extent that he deals directly with the World Bank without necessarily having to require the approval of the government of Ghana. And all the things you see here are really pure gold and nothing else. Yeah, the ornament you see on him is just pure gold. It is important to also underscore that Ghana previously was called the Gold Coast, because the Portuguese, when they got to the western coast of Africa, they realized that gold was nearly abundant in various forms, in rivers and all that. So they decided to call it the Gold Coast. Now, fast forward to the modern history of, oh, I think this is the wrong slide. No way. Okay, so prior to so after 1400, for between 1400 to 1500, that was when the Europeans started arriving in Ghana. The Danish, the Portuguese first, followed by the Danes, the Swedes, later the Germans, and then the British finally. And these European countries, initially they came as for business purposes, for trading. And as I indicated, the trans-Saharan trade was turned upside down. So trade was no longer north, south to the northern part of the country. It reversed from the northern part to the southern, from north to south, because the Europeans were interested in buying various kinds of things, gold, timber, and other natural resources. Now, it was also within that same time that the transatlantic slave trade started. So that also intensified the north-south movement of trade. And by the 1800s, there were a lot of resistance to foreign occupation in Ghana and domination. And in fact, the first and major war that was fought between the British and the then Gold Coasters was actually led by a woman called Yasantua, who is famed in Ghana. She's almost like, I don't know what character would be, I can match her to in the US, but she is more or less like a saint among especially the Ashantis. By the 1900s, Ghana was never colonized until 1902, when the British formally, after a series of fightings within wars within the 1800s, by 1900, the British had their way, and they formally annexed the country and put it under colonial rule. Now, within that same period of time, an intelligentsia group emerged, people who had returned, Ghanaians who had gone to study in the United Kingdom and in the US, had returned back to Ghana, and they could not comprehend that in Britain, people had absolute freedom, and in the United States especially, people had freedom, even though not all people, but at least white people within the UK and then the US had absolute freedom. And they thought that it was unconscionable that other people are dominating and ruling the country. That is when the colonial, the struggle against colonial rule intensified. And by 1957, Ghana became the first Black country to gain independence from the British. And interestingly, our independence hero, akin to Washington, happened to have schooled in the US. He was an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And when he returned, he led the country to freedom. And he is more or less like, there's actually a whole holiday dedicated to his birthday. Now, post-independence, we had, as I indicated earlier, before the arrival of colonialism, we Ghanaians had, or Gold Coasters had, our ways of government. And the British more or less superimposed upon that the statutory form of government. So currently Ghana has a dual mandate where you have a statutory state or government coexisting with the customary means of governance headed by chiefs. So currently we have a modern democratic state. And I must also add that Ghana is one of the most peaceful countries you find in Africa. And Ghana has never been to war. We've never had any civil war. We've had our own period of military intervention, but for about 40 years now, Ghana has been a stable, democratic, and prosperous country. Now, it is important to also add that compared to the US system where you have the executive, parliamentary, and a parliament, or like the Congress, and then the judiciary, Ghana has an additional arm of government called the Council of State. The Council of States are supposed to be they are non-executive, and they do not actually have effective power, in that they are supposed to advise the three arms of government, especially the president, but they cannot enforce or force any of these three arms of government to take their advice. Now, the Council of State is often made of chiefs and one member elected from the 16 regions. And so administratively, Ghana has 16 regions, more or less like 16 states. But because we practice we practice a unitary form of government. Contrast that to the federal form of government that the US has. These administrative regions are not autonomous. They are not semi-autonomous either. They are all subject to the directions of the central government. And below the regions are the various districts, which is akin to counties in the US, and we have 260 of them. So that is the statutory form of government with the constitution, elections. We elect all our members of parliament by popular vote. We elect the president by popular vote. That is existing side by side with the customary system of government, which is headed by chiefs. And now, as at now, the Constitution of Ghana does not recognize kings, because if you elevate anybody to a king, then that person's power will have to probably rival with that of the president. So every traditional ruler in Ghana is considered a chief as at now, even though there are some nuance, there are some differences between the chiefs because of differences in power. So at the top of the customary system is the National House of Chiefs, and chiefs are very, very powerful in Ghana. They could determine the stability of the government. They could determine whether the government loses or wins. And they are also custodians of resources and culture. So we have the National House of Chiefs, then we have chiefs, then we have also queen mothers. Typically, queen mothers just fall below the chief. And then beneath the chief is the Council of Elders. And they are all responsible for, they are the custodians of land and water resources. Now, it is important to also underscore that because we have a dual mandate system, the Constitution of Ghana says that all natural resources on, in, and on the surface of the earth belongs to the people of Ghana and is vested in the president on behalf of the people. Now, that same Constitution recognizes that chiefs are the custodians of these resources. So there is some form of so resources are co-governed, co-managed by these two systems of government. And it's important to note that the statutory form of government tend to take precedent over the customary form of government, but the state cannot, for instance, determine who becomes a chief. and the state cannot dethrone a chief. So chiefs are very, very much independent of the state system. So given that land and water resources are managed under both statutory and customary systems, you often tend to have a lot of friction between these two, because the state is the final authority that is supposed to enforce the law, but it needs somehow some permission from the customary system. I'll use one example to illustrate. For instance, dams, irrigation dams in Ghana are constructed by the state using taxpayers' money. But 70% of land in Ghana is held by chiefs. And chiefs are not accountable to the state. Chiefs are accountable to families and ethnic groups. So the irrigation dam, for instance, is constructed using taxpayers' money, but it is often on a land given by the customary system of governance. And they tend to determine who get access to the lands near the irrigation dam for irrigation purposes. And that brings me to my research, and that because of this dual mandate system, there is a lot of friction, a lot of confusion. People, if a dam is constructed by the state, it means that there is supposed to be universal usufruct right to the dam. And yes, though, it is often local level politics, customary systems that determines access outcomes. So my main question in my research is, so given this pluralistic governance structure, how do different social groups in Ghana negotiate access to water for irrigation purposes? And my research is focused in the northeastern part of the country where I come from. And it is the driest part of the country. So water is really, really, very important. Having access to water is important because you have 9 months of dry season without rainfall. So being able to have access to water is critical to livelihood outcomes for different social groups. But who are those who are capable of getting that? Now, research suggests that it's often there are powerful people in society who tend to capture these resources, what is called elite capture. But how do weaker people in society sidestep all these structures, and what determines their ability to successfully negotiate access to water? Now, issues of water has even become more important in recent times because of climate change, because in northern Ghana, livelihoods are very much dependent on the natural environment. They do not have a lot of industries there. So about 95% of households in northern Ghana, according to the 2010 household survey, were engaged in farming. And these are smallholder farmers whose livelihood are very much dependent on whether it rains or it doesn't. But because of climatic change, you have extreme dryness and too much rainfall. What is happening in northeastern Ghana particularly is that you are having too much rainfall within just about 2 months or 3 months. So you wait for because of the incidence of climate change, the rainfall has become less predictable. So if you plant your crops early and it doesn't rain, you lose all of them. So as a way of curbing that, the government of Ghana over the past 50 years have been constructing dams up north to store water and utilize it later on in the rainy season, in the dry season. But the issue has to do with the fact that most often than not, the people who are supposed to have access to water do not get it because there is so much contest for access to dump sites, and the dump sites are often regulated by chiefs, even though the dump is owned by the state. The state has certain laws, but on the local level, it is the chief that has the final say. So to put things into context, given that northeastern Ghana is semi-arid, and as you could see from this satellite image, and all the dams in northeastern Ghana are gravity-driven, in that they do not use pumps. So the dam is constructed on a higher elevation, and then it uses water is pumped using gravity. In essence, what that means is that the closer you are to the dam, the more likely you are to get access to water, because the canal is, the water is open for just a specific time, like a specific time period, let's say 3 hours a day. Now, unlike northern New Mexico and other parts of the US where there are clear water allocation rights and clear water allocation laws, in Ghana, that is not the case. So given that it is driven by gravity, the closer you are to the dam, the better access to water you have. So the question is, who are those who get the land closest to the dam? What are their connections with local power structures? And who are those who get land farthest away from the dam? What explains their negotiation outcomes? These are questions that are least understood within the literature. And to do this, I use various methods, but I often want to co-produce knowledge because most often than not in the literature, researchers tend to assume that farmers are not smart, especially smallholder farmers are not smart. They do not know what is happening and all that. So I use an ethnographic approach, geo-ethnographic approach. I go live in that community, live in communities, study them day in, day out, understand the various means and ways that they negotiate, the actors involved in the negotiation process, and what determines negotiation outcomes. In addition to qualitative methods, I also do participatory drone mapping. I try to use drones to spatially visualize how power is reflected over space and time. I also do soil water or soil moisture measurement, just to understand the extent to which soil moisture content may change because in relation to the closeness to the dam. So that is briefly about my research. I'd like to talk briefly also about Ghana. So as I said, there are so many tribes in Ghana, and over 60 ethnicities. And as you can see from this picture, this is a tribal group in northeastern Ghana where I do my research. They are called the Bulsa people, and they have a festival every year where they dress like pre-colonial warriors going to war. In fact, there was a case that this same tribal group, the Buluk people, actually went to war with the British, and they ended up killing the commander of the British contingent in the northeastern part of the country. So historically, this tribe has been the most fierce, one of the most fierce and most fearful tribes in northeastern Ghana. Beyond that, Ghana has a series of festivals, and as you can see here, I think these are horns of deer or various other animals. Warriors in Ghana generally were not just, the art of war were not generally a reserve of men. Women were also part of that. As you can see here, these are young ladies dressed in their warrior outfit. And again, this is typically supposed to be how a warrior is supposed to dress, but in modern times, we haven't. In southern Ghana, the warriors are supposed to dress this way, but in modern times, they don't go to war. So you have even young children dressing in that manner. And maybe if you want to have more fun, you could also sit on the backs of crocodiles in northeastern Ghana. Actually, it is believed that in this community, they believe that the crocodiles are their ancestors. And you see, when I went there the first time, I was amazed. They just go to the bank of the pond or the lake, and they just call a name. For instance, Paul, come out, and then a crocodile will pop out of the lake, and you could sit on it. And they do not harm them. I've been skeptical about sitting on them, but as you could see here, somebody is really enjoying himself. Beyond that, we have very nice tropical beaches. One of the best places to visit is the Buzia Beach Resort in western part of the country. If you do not like to live by the coast and you want to go a bit interior, there are very nice places you could visit. Pretty. And the good thing is that you don't need to spend that much. With just $5,000, that's even too much. You could have you could spend about 2 months vacationing in Ghana. And a little bit about dressing. Dressing is really important, and dressing in Ghana is an indication. The kind of dress and the way you wear the dress is an indication of your social status. So, for instance, women who come from a higher level are supposed to wear a dress like this, the white one. That really indicates that you are up on the social ladder. Contrast that to somebody who wears this is middle level. Men too, depending on the color, it's also important. It's also an indication of whether you are of grade level or you are middle level on the social ladder. In northeastern Ghana, this is the favorite attire that people wear. It's called the smock, and that is culturally my dressing. If you're not interested in dressing, at least there could be something that you may be interested in, at least if you could actually decide to go home finally. When I say home, the afterlife in a designer coffin, if ever you want it. Given that New Mexico, there is a lot of talk about the New Mexico chili. You could actually have a coffin in the form of a chili, as you can see here. If you are a veteran, you may want to go home with some artillery fire, or if you're interested, if you were a fisherman, you could actually decide to go home with in a coffin made in the form of fish. So, Pusia, thank you, and Medas. I am looking forward to your questions.
Dinko, is the domain economy agriculture, or do they have other processing activities, industrial activities?
Over this past 30 years, the economy has transformed a lot. Initially, it was heavily dependent on agriculture. Now, agriculture contributes just about 20% of the economy. We've moved drastically, just like how the rest of the developing world are moving. We're moving straight from agrarian economies to service-oriented economies. So now, industry and the services sector are the majority. I mean, they make the most significant contribution to the economy.
Anybody else have a comment or question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jane. Hi. Oh, no, Callie.
No,
sorry.
I'm Callie. Hi, I'm listening to you from Virginia.
Oh, nice.
Because, and I was in Ghana long before you were born. I was there from 65 to 67 in Aberdeen. In that area in southern, I was teaching in Aberdeen Girls Secondary School.
Aberdeen?
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's interesting. During the Kuma years.
I loved hearing what you're saying, and it's always very interesting. I've been back a couple of times since then, but it's really interesting to see how things have changed. One of the things that worries me that I'm curious about is how is Ghana doing preserving resources, forests, resources that are underground. I have some reason to believe that there are outside entities that are really, really anxious to take hold of those things.
Well, there are a lot of issues with respect to resource management, especially forest and water resource management in Ghana, especially the invasion of transnational capital, especially the Chinese capital. And they are destroying a lot of water bodies and they are decimating the forests. And the difficult aspect is about China's involvement in Africa in general is that they are systematically co-opting policymakers and the ruling elite who and those who are supposed to enforce the law will look the other way and let the Chinese have their way. Because the argument is that China is providing cheaper forms of technology and all that, but they are decimating the forest. So it's a big problem in Ghana now. In fact, the current president in 2016, one of the reasons why he won the elections was his promise to deal with the Chinese. But when he came to power, the Chinese invited him over to China, and he came back and he changed his tone. In fact, there are a lot of cases where police have arrested police and local people have taken the law into their own hands and arrested the Chinese. And the state decides that, okay, in the middle of the night, they are going to deport them without trying them in the courts. In fact, there is one high-profile case of a Chinese woman who was popular. I mean, they call her the Asian Queen in Ghana, and she was arrested, arraigned before court, and while the trial was ongoing, we woke up the next day and we realized we were told that she was in China. So she didn't. And there's no way that she could be deported without the knowledge of the executive, without the president being aware or the minister of interior being aware of that. So it is really a big issue. Forest management, water resource management in general, it is a big issue because of this resource grabbing from by Chinese. Yeah.
It's about 10, 12 years ago, China really made an effort looking for raw materials and they went into places in Africa and Latin America. They didn't pay much attention to the local rules and the local customs. They just went in and did their own thing, and it's a problem.
It kind of sounds like colonialism all over.
It sure does.
Yeah, but I mean, people will tell you that it may not necessarily be colonialism because in as much as the Chinese are interested in the resources, they are not taking it for free. They pay. They may not necessarily care about the environment, but they do not
for the resources at a legitimate price.
Yeah, I think so. With respect to gold, for instance, gold mining in Ghana, I think that I know for sure that they do have to pay all the taxes. My problem is not about how much tax we make from. It is not about how much tax we make from the gold. It's about people's livelihood being destroyed. You have people who depend on river bodies as source of water. Now, rivers in Ghana are not just water sources. They have cultural and spiritual values. Now, because in my culture, for instance, a river is supposed to be a living being, which requires respect and honor, and has a personality and dignity like any other human being. And polluting it is fundamentally against my beliefs, beyond the fact that people may not be able to have access to water. It is destroying the culture of people, and people actually have faith, and there are people who worship rivers. Mm-hmm. How do you worship a polluted God? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have a comment or a question?
Two questions. First, you had mentioned that you might look forward to becoming a chief. Is that something that is decided just by your heredity, or is it also a process where you have to, as you mentioned, qualify with the Queen Mother or something?
So becoming a chief is a bit complicated. I'll talk about my lineage, how you become a chief within my lineage. So there are two parts of it. One is the spiritual component, and then the other one, the spiritual and ritual component, and then the other one has to do with the social component. You must, at least in my culture, you must be endorsed by the ancestors. And there are various ways of determining that. And I mean, I'm not necessarily positioned to discuss that here. I don't think this is the appropriate forum or this are the appropriate audience to listen to what is done in order to confirm that. But the social aspect is you must be of good behavior. You must have certain characteristics. You must have been groomed and sat under the feet of the chief for a long while, understood the family traditions and secrets in order to become a chief. So my grandfather, when my great-grandfather died, I was about 10 years when my great-grandfather died in the 1990s. And there was this group within the family who wanted to necessarily impose somebody on the family as the next chief. Truth of the matter is that he was actually enthroned as the chief, and he died within 5 years because it is against the tradition. He is a bad blood to the throne. And when they decided to follow the law, they laid down procedure. It was my grandfather who was confirmed as the chief. So there are various ways, and you must be of good character, good standing. You must have lived a life of a good citizen. No criminal convictions. If you ever went to jail, forget it. You will never become a chief. If you are known to have like what we call oral diarrhea, in that you are not able to control your mouth. You just open your mouth and you say all things. You are never going to become a chief. So there are a lot of ways. Of course, my father is still alive. If my grandfather is not to be there, he is supposed to be the most favored one to become chief and all that. It goes on a line, but there are so many ways of disqualifying you if there is evidence that you didn't live a good life.
Hey, Charlie, American politician wouldn't last very long down there if they with their diarrhea mouth.
No, and that was an expression my dad used. He would talk about somebody having verbal diarrhea, and my dad was not a Ghanaian and definitely not a Ghanaian chief either.
I just wonder, do they have private land there, or is it all under the control of the chief?
So about 10% of land in Ghana belongs to the state, which is more like federal land in Ghana, in the US. Then there is also private land. You can buy land from a chief, and you need to go to the Lands Commission, and there will be transfer of ownership. Initially, you could buy land ad infinitum, like you could have ownership of a land ad infinitum. But 10 years ago, they introduced a new law that you cannot buy land for more than 99 years. And there are some lands that you cannot hold for more than 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so there are private lands, but it's still the chief or the royal family has to transfer that land to the private individual. I think Carla Campbell had her hand up. Carla Campbell.
Yeah, anyone else have a question or comment? We're getting close to our time here.
Go ahead.
Carla, go ahead.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for your presentation. I'm joining you from Pennsylvania.
Oh,
Good, Carla.
nice.
But my
our founder, you gave our founder a place to stay while he was in the US. We thank you for that.
My question is about access to clean drinking water, what the situation is in Ghana.
We have two forms of access to water in Ghana. You could have access to water through the municipal system, where very akin to a normal city in the US. You have taps running and all that. Then you have other small town systems that are dependent on boreholes that are not municipal. You have to walk a distance in order to go get your water. In fact, there is a third group where people have to drink from wells and rivers. So, but statistically speaking, to the number of people who have access to water in urban spaces, about 80% of households have access to municipal water. Now, in rural areas, it is the opposite. Because especially in northern Ghana, because houses tend to be far apart, and those houses, that is actually intentional because most of them are farmers. So you build your house in your farm, and there will be a lot of land between you and the next house. So the regional government and the district government often say that it's too expensive to lay pipes so many kilometers just to serve one household and move to another so many kilometers in order to get another household. So those ones are off the grid. And in northern Ghana is usually boreholes and wells that people have access to, people get their water through. But
Well,
it is improving.
Go ahead, Collie.
Okay, well, one other thing, is it still true that the water situation in southern Ghana is very different? I had a friend visiting from Ghana when I was in El Paso, and we went to see a farmer, a guy who had a farm in New Mexico. And they had this great conversation of talking about water, because the men in New Mexico was saying, yeah, we get like 40 inches of rain a year. And Kwaku, my friend from Ghana, said, well, okay, we get about 4 inches, but he was trying to figure out how to save the water from the rainy season so he could use it, through the rest of the year. But there's still a lot of water in southern Ghana, right? The drought is not.
Yeah, that's correct. Climatologically, southern Ghana is distinct from northern Ghana. You have tropical rainforests. You could get as high as 1,200 millimeters of rainfall a year. I don't know how to convert that into inches with the American system of measurement. Basically, you have more water in southern Ghana compared to northern Ghana. And in fact, in southern Ghana, they have double maximum rainfall season. So they have 2 rainfall seasons within a year. And so rivers are flowing throughout the year. And agriculture you have all year agricultural or farming. In northern Ghana, that's not the case. It's just a lot of rain within 3 months. The rest of the year is very dry. So competition for water in that circumstance is very much intensified and more complicated than in southern Ghana, where you have a lot of lakes, rivers, and all that. Yeah.
It sounds like New Mexico to a certain extent.
I'd like to say something. I think, Carla, can you mute yourself? Because I think you're making noises that you aren't aware of.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Anyway, we got to close this off. It's towards the end of our session. I see Sarah there.
Hello.
So let's give him a big hand. Big hand. Thank you, Dinko, very much. Very important.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoy your company and your questions.
Oh, okay, very good. I want to just indicate next week, we're going to have Paul Gessing. He's the president of the Rio Grande Foundation, and they're very much into free market beliefs. So it should be a very interesting discussion. Charlie had arranged for him to be our next week speaker. So that's who we'll have next week. And thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.